All right. Well, hello, everyone. We're going to get started here. It is the month of February at our monthly community meeting. My name is Jessica Andino, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Johnson County Affordable Housing Coalition. You guys made it to the right place, the right space, the right time, and I thank you for that because we have a lot to cover today when it comes to both our guest speaker, and I'll also do a mini presentation as well regarding solar. But I hope you guys can see my screens, right? Thumbs up if you can. Perfect. Got some head nods too. Appreciate it. Because we always start with our community updates, things that I've been working on and others in the affordable housing realm here locally when it comes to outreach, education, projects, and programs, and they kind of all intertwine. One thing that we've been working on in partnership with the Johnson County PDS department and a few other local advocates is bringing forth a incremental development series to Johnson County. This would be a develop the developer course. It more or less is grassroots based initiatives to make positive community change, maybe at an empty lot, maybe at a rundown commercial building, maybe a pop-up shop located in a park. IncDev is a partner that we're working with in order to bring that to Johnson County, and I'm submitting a grant later this month to AARP, so stay tuned. If you're interested in that and want to be part of a development team and don't quite know where to start, I'm going to encourage you to sign up when we start publicizing that. We've also been working with city staff and counselors in Iowa City, North Liberty, and Corville. You know, it is fun budget season. We have a couple of mayors on here right now that know the fun. Oh, I'm glitching. Sorry, that know the fun of this budget season. So we've been working towards that, specifically in Iowa City that has the local option sales tax earmarked for affordable housing. Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County. Ellen McCabe is on here. Hi, Ellen. They are continually working to distribute money towards affordable housing projects and also for, creating and preserving units of affordable housing. If you are on a development team or wish to be able to seek money for your nonprofit in order to preserve housing, create new housing that's affordable, we encourage you to reach out to Ellen McCabe through the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County. It is also legislative season, second year of the 91st General Assembly is how that works. There's a couple of bills that I want you guys on here to be aware of that we've been working on in the background, either actively supporting or opposing. And these are ones that are currently live. How our legislation works is they have to get through a funnel date. They have to be voted on in a subcommittee level and then a committee level in order to be live. We've worked on others in tandem with partners across the state that did not make that funnel deadline of last Friday. My internet here is a little unstable. Sorry about that. So the few that I did want to hit that are still live is that House File 2548 or 84, excuse me. This is really about criminalizing homelessness and creating drug-free zones at or near homeless service providers. A couple of issues with this. One, it is already illegal to possess or have or utilize drugs in and around those facilities, so it is duplicative in nature. And two, a real concern that we have is the signage. I know, my internet, I don't know what's going on, guys. We're going to make it through this Friday. The signage requirement that is on these facilities, it would require to have big block letters that demonstrate this is a drug-free zone in a housing area. We have extreme concern for this, especially for our shelters that are not to public, not advertised to the public, like our DV, our domestic violence shelters. So I encourage you to look at that and to reach out to your reps and senators to oppose. Another one is Senate File 412. My internet, oh my goodness gravy. Senate File 412 changes the reporting requirements of landlords. It would allow them to, instead of posting physical notice onto doors, it would allow them to do just internet or email notification of serious notices like FEDs, forcible entry detainers, also known as evictions, 3-day notices, or other notices. We have concerns with that simply because, as you're seeing, as I'm demonstrating right now, the internet is not always reliable. So we have extreme concerns about that and notifications for vulnerable folks. There is one bill that we are still in support of, and there's probably a few others that are hanging out there as well. This is a co-sponsored bill by Judd Lawler and Adam Zabner, both from Johnson County, and it is more or less attempting to fight NIMBYism, the not in our backyard, not in my backyard mentality, by getting rid of the supermajority requirement on building and development permits. So again, please look that up. Some things on my screen here. Sorry, folks. We've been working heavily with the Iowa Manufactured Home Residents Network. You may have seen our purple shirts on the Day on the Hill, which was February 5th. That was coordinated by the coalition staff and then in partnership with community organizers, Candy Evans and Jen Shearer. So lots of work being done there about residents' rights. We did propose some legislation. We did work on some water quality stuff that you might have seen in the news, and now we're working on some erosion or sinking home issues that are in Lake Ridge. If you're interested in learning more, as always, please reach out. We're still involved with the student build program of Johnson County. They're working on their third home right now on Sandusky. It is looking like a home now. It's not just, a slab. So I encourage you to drive by. Those students are getting hands-on training in order to either decide to go into the trades field or decide that it's not for them. Both extremely valuable while building a home for the housing fellowship. We are implementing a financial wellness series in daycares, which is going to be for housing stability, talking to daycare workers. We've heard from some of our partner agencies. Oh my gosh, it is my internet. Some of our partner agencies that they would like to be able to have some budgeting, some, housing related financial wellness brought to them. So we're going to those daycare settings, to a couple of in-homes as well, to provide this service. That is with a grant through the Iowa Women's Foundation. So I want to give them a shout out there. Another program that we're working on right now is RentWise. I've said it a few times on these meetings, but I'm glad to see some new folks here today. RentWise is a tenant-based education program for not only tenants' rights, but tenants' responsibilities as well. They receive a certificate at the end of this that can kind of elevate their application when they are looking for housing in the very competitive market here. I sit in on the board of directors at the Iowa Housing Partnership, and we have been using their network to get the word out on good legislation, bad legislation currently, but we have some really cool programming coming up there as well. If you're interested in knowing more about the Iowa Housing Partnership, I would direct you to their website and reach out to their director, Dan Garrett. I always put in a request, and this time it is more of a community shout out or a community highlight about a really cool collaborative effort. And stop moving. I think that's what it is. Just stop moving. I'll stop moving. A really cool community effort that we have that is going to be for our local veterans. Our Iowa City Housing Authority has been conveyed the land and buildings at 1102 Hollywood Boulevard, which was purchased by Johnson County. Why this is such a big deal is because it is the first of its kind in the state of Iowa to be a housing unit, 15 units to be exact, that is for veterans. They will be accepting HUD VASH vouchers and receive supportive services through that program. Again, it is the first of its kind. I really want to give a shout out to Rachel Carter for being innovative with the Iowa City Housing Authority and making sure that we have opportunities for veterans that wish to stay in our amazing community to do so. So there's been a lot in the press. Many different news outlets have picked this up, and they've done a fine job of highlighting how amazing it is. So hopefully you've heard about that as well. I'm so sorry about this internet. I'm going to keep going. Sound good? Because I want to invite you to something. I want to invite you to our spring social. Our spring social happens every year, and it's at the greenhouse right there across from City Hall in Iowa City. We will be hosting this from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 26th. So hopefully you can come there. Open house style. We'll have some food from New Pie next door, and members of the coalition get a free drink ticket of their choice. So I hope that each of you can join us there. Goodness, it's internet. Okay, now for what you're really here, right? So what we have been working on here at the coalition has been a partnership between all of the agencies that you see on this screen here about solar for housing stability and reducing housing cost burden for homeowners in Johnson County. This was a grant that we received through the company or the giving group of GiveSolar. They are an East Coast based agency that gave money to states that did not receive federal tax incentives for solar. So luckily Iowa in this case, they reached out to Iowa Habitat for Humanity. Iowa Habitat for Humanity found us a good partner, which is the Iowa Valley Habitat for Humanity. You know those fine folks in the Restore. And then they reached out to us to be able to administer this grant. So it really is a collaborative partnership that then we worked with Johnson County Clean Energy District and Solar Grant to implement. Internet. So it started off with some energy assessments. We had Eric Street and his team do some assessments on 4 homes to determine their energy efficiency and to see if they were suitable for these solar arrays. I won't take away all the solar fun from Chris and his team because that's what here that they're going to represent. And I am not the solar guy. I do a lot of things, but I just put solar panels on. I don't know how they work exactly, but Chris definitely is the guy to ask. But we wanted to make sure that they were solar ready. So we had these inspected. Thank you again to Eric and his team to be able to do so to find these suitable homes. In addition to that, we had a student, Allison, who worked really, really hard on this project and completed a literature review of scientific evidence from nationwide searches, and then also interviews to be able to decide, what is stopping folks from adopting solar in their communities. There were 2 things. One, it's expensive and tax credits are very squishy and always changing and very difficult for myself and others to understand. And then the second identified key finding is just limited knowledge about what it would take or how is it beneficial or what is the cost savings, right? So we were trying to see how we could physically, make an impact and reduce those barriers. So what we ended up doing was we created some educational materials. These are currently in the process of being translated from just English to other languages. We can also get these printed out. Evan's shaking his head like, yes, I want those. I see you, Evan. Definitely wants to have these. They are post installation. We have a lot of questions about that, just the solar benefits. Why should we be doing them? And then who best to select to trust with this large, costly endeavor on your home. Chris is going to also have some really, really great resources for that too. Okay, now this is where we start. I'm going to skip the video for now and we'll put it at the end because we also have a really lovely 6.5-minute video, but I'm really scared about this internet and how janky that's going to be. So really what I want to focus on here is how is this impacting homeowners in Johnson County specifically? We did 4 homes. We installed them for free. We spent approximately $39,000 in order to have 4 solar arrays installed. We were only able to collect pre and post data on 3 homes. So we had the Iowa City home, the 2 Hills homes, and then the 3rd home, which is, the 4th home, which is in Coralville. We did not get pre and post numbers on yet. But I want to direct you to the 3 charts that are here. You can see that there is significant cost savings because these are just the differences between November or October or January of the year prior and this year. So I'm looking maybe, for example, this Hills House 1, November as an example. This would be the difference between November of 24 and November of 25. This homeowner saved $78.75 that month directly just on electric costs. In December, looking at the year prior to the current year, they saved almost $60. And then January and then February, which would be just this month, this homeowner from the year prior saved $85 out of pocket. I do want to note that not everything is always 100%. sunshine and rainbows. Right here, you'll see in the Iowa City home, there were more costs, out-of-pocket costs in November and December compared to the previous year. Two reasons for that. One, things are more expensive now. I think we all know that. And two, those solar panels were covered with snow. So again, we live in Iowa and that can happen. Okay. So that is the difference here on this home in the Southeast Iowa City area. But overall, if you look at it, there has been significant cost savings to these homeowners. So I don't know how much more data I can show than direct out-of-pocket savings for reducing cost burden. I want to take one more moment to say thank you to the partners on this. They are also highlighted in the video that we will show at the end when the internet decides to like me. But I'm going to hopefully pass it over here to Chris now, which is going to be talking directly from his experience and professional expertise over at Eagle Point Solar on behalf of the Johnson County Solar Task Force. I'm hoping his internet is more stable than mine during this call as well. So give us 1 second here while we share our screens and play together. And Chris, if you wouldn't mind, if people have questions about mine right now, would you be comfortable with them giving me any questions? You're fine with that, he says. If there's
Yep, go
anybody that
for it.
has questions, they can just kind of unmute as Chris did there in order to ask any questions about the solar energy that we have actually implemented on 4 homes in Johnson County.
And Sarah and I had a chance to touch base before this meeting started, and she went through the slides and she had us up in the beginning of this presentation. And I said, why don't you just wait until we're at the end? Because everything that she's been doing, that these partnerships have been doing, really leads into what our task force is intending to do as well. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk about that in advance. So I'm going to pull up a slideshow here on my side. And I also thought the internet was the issue on my end, so I am on my mobile device. And hopefully, there we go. Awesome. Do you guys see
Perfect.
that on there so far?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Well, as Jessica indicated, we are a part of a small group called the Solar Energy Task Force here in Johnson County, the Johnson Solar Task Force. And I want to first of all thank Jessica and others for this opportunity to just get this information out. And I think our group has been around loosely for almost 2 years now, but really in a concentrated effort here for the last 12 months. And what we've discovered is that we just really want folks to know how solar can be of benefit to them. And while we may not have every single answer individually, what we are accustomed to is being this connective tissue. I would like to think I know a lot about solar energy, but some of the challenges that a business, an affordable housing coordinator may face are all going to be unique circumstances. So while I might not have those exact answers, I'm hoping that this group and others around us can be that connective tissue and get those answers for all of us. Um, and as Jessica mentioned to start off with, the cost of owning a home really is where affordable housing comes into play. And when we think about affordable housing, we are oftentimes talking about rent. We're talking about the big ticket item that's out there. And what I really was happy to see is that there's already evidence on these homes that have solar in Hills and Iowa City, and there will be in Coralville on what those actual dollar amount savings are. And as we've experienced in the last 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, is that our electric rates are continue to go up, and they're going to be going up at a lot faster pace here in the next 10 years than they have in the previous 10 years. So we hope to be able to impart the idea that paying for energy is something that hopefully can be avoided. And if you can avoid those costs, you reduce the ownership costs for a homeowner. And if you're a provider of these homes and these facilities, it also then helps to support what are getting to be thinner and thinner profit margins or tighter budgets that you're all facing. So we're here today to just explore a little bit, understand a little bit more about what you are all up against, and be able to be that connective tissue for you today. So I'll introduce a few members of the task force. A few of them are here with me today. Why we think solar energy is a perfect solution for the challenges that you face, that we all face, quite frankly, in just being better stewards of our dollars. How we might be able to help, what sort of resources are there right now, and then ultimately what barriers you're going to be facing. So I want to first of all introduce two people that are on this meeting right now with me. Many of you know Jim Throgmorton, former mayor of Iowa City. He's part of our task force, and I promised Jim he wouldn't have to say a lot in this presentation, but you know how it is. What did Jessica say? With former mayors, they always have a way of bringing information to our forefront. So jump in whenever you feel like it, Jim. Another member of our task force, Casey Cook, is online watching as well. And many of you know Casey in the community as well from Cook Appraisals. And a silent person on our group, I don't mean silent because he likes to talk, is Evan Doyle with Greater Iowa City, or I'm sorry, yeah, with Greater Iowa City. So those three are here with me today. But this partnership has really been a group of folks like Jim, local leaders, myself, another solar developer. We have someone in finance. We have an entrepreneur. We have community policy experts. And our goal is really to be able to connect some of these financial and technical resources around us in this Johnson County community when it comes to developing solar energy, specifically for you all as affordable housing advocates, but also for other homeowners, other nonprofits, businesses, that could all benefit from this. Our goal as a task force is to have the energy that the county uses in this region to get 10% of it to come from solar energy over the next 10 years. And that number doesn't sound very big, but as we stand right now, with all of the solar we see in Johnson County, we're only at about 1%. So to give you some perspective, look out your windows when you're driving back home or you're driving someplace this weekend. You see a lot of solar in places right now. We're definitely more than you would have 5 years ago. Our goal is to make that 10 times. And so not everyone in the county can put solar on their homes. Not every roof is accessible for it. And we know that it's going to take a lot of us to pull this off. So that's what we're doing now, is to get this message out on what the small parts that we all can do individually make a big difference collectively. Our task force right now, I mentioned a few of them. It's really about six of us at the core. It started a little bit bigger, but these are the folks that show up. These are the folks that care about this topic and are investing some time each month, every 6 or 8 weeks in there. If any of you know Cheryl Miller, Cheryl is a board member with Johnson Clean Energy District. And she's the ringleader. She's the one that roped all of us into this here about 2 years ago. Some of you may know Scott Jameson. He's the vice president of business development with Midwest One, and a very active member on a lot of boards in our community in Johnson County as well. And clearly has nothing to do with solar, but he's the kind of guy that wants to be involved and wants to be part of that connective tissue. As I mentioned earlier, many of you know Casey Cook also with Cook Appraisal in the Iowa City area. Casey has become what he describes as a social entrepreneur and has been an investor in solar projects for nonprofits. I mentioned Jim just a moment ago. Terry Van Dyke with Solar by Brandt is a part of our task force. And then myself and Evan, I didn't mean to slight you in the beginning, quiet, but Evan's our main connective tissue through Greater Iowa City. And while he has a lot of hats that he wears, he's our face to the public on behalf of Greater Iowa City. So as to give you a heads up as to who we are as a group, not all of us are solar nerds, a lot of other backgrounds that we bring to the table. So Jessica brought this up a little bit, and this is really why I wanted to go last, because these are already things that you're aware of as group and that she was bringing up is that solar energy is becoming the fastest growing source of new energy development, not only in the United States, but across the world. Other technologies are there, but solar energy is really making a strong push for development and will continue to do so at record paces over the next decade. And we have a lot of space in Johnson County on rooftops, on ground spaces for a solar array to be mounted and built that serves that home, that business, that building. So these are not large solar farms that you might see driving across the county or the region or the state. These are individual solar arrays serving that home, serving that business, serving that nonprofit, that affordable home. And the idea with solar, as Jessica mentioned earlier, is to help reduce those operating expenses. And she was showing you real life examples of the electric bill savings in those months for these homes. And that's what I'll present a little bit more here in just a moment as well. But because of that, we recognize that if you can lower those operating expenses, that's fabulous. You can also start to minimize and predict and become more stable in what those energy costs are going to be in the future. Because what we hear about rate increases, for example, by our utility companies, doesn't really matter if you're making the electricity yourself. I have a solar array at my house, and I could really care less what my utility company is charging me for my electricity because I'm not buying it from them. So you've insulated yourself not only from today's cost, but you're future-proofing those budgets for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years, for the next 30 years. And if you have an opportunity to put a battery alongside of these solar arrays, you also provide some additional layer of resiliency for these homes. And if you're in a home that requires some type of electrical service 24 hours a day for life supporting purposes, if the power goes out, those homes and those populations are vulnerable at that point in time. And hopefully there's contingencies in place, but a battery alongside of a solar array is an extraordinary way to provide for that additional resiliency as well. So and when you're developing a project from the ground on paper, adding solar energy can oftentimes strengthen those grants and competitive dollars that might exist out there. So this can enhance the playbook, so to speak. Briefly, what I wanted to touch on is some of the policy challenges or good things that are out there and some of the incentives that are available. And this is what makes this work. And as Jessica indicated, these projects have an expense to them. If you can have a grant funding, if you can get a tax credit, if you can take some type of benefit to reduce that upfront expense, that makes this system pay for itself just a little bit sooner. As we currently stand right now, we're operating within the rules written inside of the Inflation Reduction Act, which Congress approved in 2022. Some of those measures have been taken away already. What's left in this Inflation Reduction Act, though, is in place until the end of 2027 because of provisions written into the One Big Beautiful Bill last July. What's currently in place is a 30% federal income tax credit for a commercial project. So if a business installs a solar array, they get this federal tax credit. They're also going to be able to take advantage of depreciation at both the state and the federal level. Inside of the Inflation Reduction Act, there were also bonus credits for low income and community projects. And while that is really great to see on paper, executing on those credits has some pretty high bars and some pretty high standards. However, if it's a case that can be made, that can help reduce those expenses as well. And one of the beauties of this Inflation Reduction Act from 2022 was the ability for a nonprofit, whether it's the North Liberty Community Pantry or a homeless shelter in Cedar Rapids, to buy a solar array outright themselves. And because they're not a taxable entity, having an income tax credit was no value to them. So what the Inflation Reduction Act put in place 3 years ago was the ability for a nonprofit to take the tax equivalent of that credit as a direct payment. So the North Liberty Pantry installed their solar array last year, and once they filed their tax return for this year, they will be then getting back money, that is 30% of that project's cost as a direct payment because they are a nonprofit. So that Inflation Reduction Act really equalized the financial benefit out there and provided another opportunity for a nonprofit that might not otherwise get to take any of these incentives because they don't have a tax burden and help to equalize the playing field. As I mentioned, these that are in place right now are set to expire at the end of 2027. So one of the things that we as a task force are really faced with right now is this sense of urgency. And if an organization, if a home, a business is in a position to take action on these things, doing so within the next 18 months and getting it finished is going to be there's going to be a significant value for doing so. The last small benefit that we see on here from a policy standpoint is that in the state of Iowa, there's invest in solar on your home. County assessors don't look at that as an increase in your valuation for the first 5 years that you have it in place. So it's a bit of a honeymoon period where they don't provide any additional property tax needs because of this investment that you're making in that property. I sometimes find that I'm going fast, and I've been advised to slow down a tiny bit and take a breath. So I'll do so. Does anyone have any questions so far for me? All right, there'll be plenty of time at the end. All right, I'm going to move on. Some of the challenges that might be unique to affordable housing, but honestly, they're a barrier or something that's a challenge everywhere. Are upfront capital costs. Some groups, as I mentioned, the Pantry, a housing shelter in Cedar Rapids, they have some capital dollars that they wanted to put to work. Others don't, and those are some constraints that are built in. Oftentimes, when you're looking at a budget for how you're going to pay for a unit, all of those expenses, money is coming from different resources and different places, so you have to balance that in all of the financing options that are out there. In solar, specifically, depending on the utility companies that you're with, net metering or the ability to save extra money in those electric bills each month and add it later on down the road. Those changes by utility companies are also creating some uncertainty out there, and those are things that we want to be able to connect with and get some solid answers for. Whether or not the tenant pays the electric bill or the owner of the home or the unit pays the electric bill can also provide a little bit of a layer of complexity or make it a little bit unique and maybe one possible barrier. It exists, but it's not extraordinarily challenging to overcome. So being able to provide that answer and be that resource as a task force is what we're hoping to be able to do. And then also, lastly on this list is whether or not the building, the site, the location has a viability for solar energy. And a lot of it goes on the roof of homes. Some of it can go on the ground next to a building, depending on where it's located. But at the end of the day, what our task force exists to do is to help all of us and help all of you navigate some of these challenges that are out there. And again, to be this connective tissue for you. So Jessica had a real life example with 3 homes that are using solar energy in Iowa City and Hills. This is a hypothetical example. On a larger, think about this a little bit differently. If you were to think about this as an apartment building, think of this as a 40-unit property that if it had an upfront cost to install a solar array of about $220,000, if it's a nonprofit that owns the building, or if it's a for-profit entity that owns the building, there's going to be a federal income tax credit or direct payment of 30% of that comes back. In this case, that would have been $66,000. The net cost on this project, because of that direct payment or that income tax credit, comes down to $154,000. So let's assume that this solar array mounted to serve this building can produce about 135,000 kilowatt hours of electricity every year. That equates to about $27,000 of electric bill savings. And let that sink in for those of you that write the bills, balance the budgets for a home, for a building. This is an expense that can be avoided years to come. $27,000 in this case is an expense that does not have to be borne once this project has cash flowed itself. And in this case, we expect a project like this to cash flow positive in about 6 years. So that net cost of that system of about $154,000 with the electric bill that you're not paying over the next 5.7 years, all of that investment has been recouped. That's $27,000 in this case that can be used to provide additional services, to provide additional resources to more tenants, to more of your communities that you're serving out there. So this is an exceptional way to free up future dollars and at the same time do good for the environment and everyone around us. In this example, we estimate that the 25-year savings on this project is north of $400,000. And again, let that sink in. For those of you managing properties and this case by case basis, what that means in the future. And we have 25 years illustrated here because the equipment that we're using, the solar panels, have a warranty of 25 years or more on them. And quite frankly, they're going to be operating and making electricity for the next 40 or 50 years, but they have a warranty attached to them for a minimum of 25 years. So as you can see, there's not only an environmental benefit, but there's a financial benefit to this. And after the system has paid for itself, that homeowner, that building owner, that building manager doesn't have to think about what they hear on the news about rate increases by their local utility company. So these are reasons why solar energy can be so beneficial to so many people, but specifically this audience today for affordable housing. If an entity is not in the position to that has money, that has the $220,000 or the 30,000 that Jessica was talking about, there are other financial structures available out there, and a couple of them come to mind here, and I wanted to highlight them. The main one is something called a power purchase agreement. This is something that allows a third party, we do quite a number of these ourselves at Eagle Point Solar, to buy a solar array for an entity. Oftentimes, it's a nonprofit of some sort that doesn't have the money in a budget. When a third party can buy that solar array, they can take those tax credits and they can in turn impart some indirect benefit back to that entity. And what that entity then just buys is energy that that solar array is creating. And instead of buying that electricity from the utility company, they buy the energy that that solar array is producing. And they will do so at a discounted price. And that's the goal of a power purchase agreement, is to again reduce, it wouldn't eliminate it in this case, but it would reduce the monthly and annual expense for buying electricity. Another alternative that's not quite brought to fruition here yet in Iowa, and I realized a typo in here, so please don't ding me on that. There is more than legalation. There's legislation pending at the state level to provide for community solar. And what community solar allows for is someone that lives in an apartment building who clearly doesn't have a rooftop or any way that they can put a solar array in place for themselves to buy into and to subscribe to a solar array that might be constructed a block down the street. And that solar array serves the neighborhood. It can serve anyone that wants to subscribe to the purchase of that solar array. Right now, that mechanism doesn't quite exist here in Iowa, but fingers crossed this is the year our legislature can pull this off and make this happen. It exists in other states. It exists in Illinois, for example, so that when you buy into a community solar subscription, you can buy credits that go towards your electric bill. Alliant Energy has some pockets of this across the state of Iowa, but that is something that they have constructed themselves, and you're buying into their subscription service. A great service, don't get me wrong, but it's not one that's controlled locally. There will always be an ongoing subscription that you can buy into for Alliant, where a community solar project may be able to have an expiration date there for you. And finally, if you are someone that has multiple properties and likes the idea of being able to take these, there are oftentimes going to be economies of scale that can be found if multiple properties are involved, or ways that these can be structured financially. So there's other ways that a solar project can be structured from a financial basis to be of benefit to a nonprofit or to an affordable housing advocate as well. And as I mentioned earlier, when you are able to put a battery alongside of a solar array, it helps to provide some resiliency to that home. In the event they do suffer a power outage, the refrigerator that has food in it can stay going, keep that food cold without having to replace it, for example. If you have life supporting devices in the home, those can also continue to operate. And what those prove to do is protect those individuals that might be the most vulnerable during what might be an extreme weather event occurring out there. And resilience, I think, ties into how you all, as an affordable housing advocates, think about providing to your community, to your residents, is to provide some resilience around them. So this can build in an additional layer for just that reason. So, what we want to do as a task force, and what I said in the beginning, is that we want to be a resource to anyone that would like to look at this technology. And while we don't know the answer, we don't we know that every answer is not the same for every entity. We realize that we can get to an answer and help you find that answer. So, what we want to know and what we would like to do to help is to answer some of those questions. I'd like to think this is a wonderful presentation full of all sorts of extremely helpful information, but I know that there's a lot more questions that exist out there. Help us to know what those questions are, and we can be this connective tissue for you. We also would love to perform some solar analysis, some assessments on some properties, and help you to run those numbers. These are no obligations for us to do so. We can then dive into some of the options when it comes to financing, how your utilities policy might come into play, what your homeowners association might have to say about it, what the city might have to say about it, and then ultimately we can help connect you to someone that can develop these projects for you. But I will leave you with this, that we do have an ask of you all, is that if this is information that was helpful today, and I hope it was, we want you to tell other people about this. We want you to advocate for this technology, because you may not find the benefit, or maybe you're already doing it right now, but letting this be known that this exists out there and this is a tremendous way to reduce these costs in the future is what we want you to be able to take away from this. So those in your communities that you serve, your boards of directors, wherever you are, let them know that we exist as an organization, as a task force, with the goal of helping them to potentially reduce some of these burdens, or to make this a reality. And I'll leave with one closing thought here on this, is that there's a lot of reasons that you could adopt solar energy, but specifically for affordable housing providers, this has a real opportunity, and Jessica highlighted this at the beginning, to provide some financial stability. These homeowners in Hills and Iowa City are seeing lower electric costs. And those lower electric costs are burdens that they don't have to bear, that they can do something else with those dollars month in and month out. It might mean one extra trip to the grocery store, you name it. It could be a car payment. It could be a lot of things to a lot of different people. So think about this small investment, what it may be able to do, not just for one family, but for multiple families down the road. I've talked a lot. There's a lot of us here to help, but I'm going to focus everyone's energies and questions, and after this, over to Evan at Greater Iowa City. This is Evan's email address. If you have questions about our task force and how we might be able to support your goals, reach out to Evan, and he'll funnel that information over there to us. Jessica, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop sharing.
Wonderful. Yeah. It looks like we have one question in the chat already. But it is everybody's opportunity to ask questions either through the chat or unmuting, but I'll narrate this one. It says, how is solar treated in historical and conservation districts? Thinking specifically for the city of Iowa City.
Chris, let me take a shot at that.
Please do.
I live in the North Side neighborhood. My wife and I live in an historic preservation district part of that neighborhood. The first thing to know is that if you want to install solar panels on a structure that's not directly a part of your house, You can do that very easily. It takes very little time to negotiate something with the Historic Preservation Commission about that. You don't have to go through detailed processes. If you have to do, if you want to do something that involves putting panels facing the street and visible from the street and on the main structure, you definitely would have to work with the Historic Preservation District about that. The biggest challenge for in the north side Historic Preservation District is large trees that are on the south of the building, which means during the winter or during the summer at least, and when leaves are out on the trees, you get a lot of shading, and that cuts down on the amount of power you can generate from your panels. But if you don't have anything blocking your panels, like we have a 3 kW kilowatt hour, or I'm sorry, kilowatt array on a shed in our backyard. It's not shaded at all. So the only time it doesn't get sunshine and generate power basically is at night and then when snow's on the roof of the structure. But we've been operating that system since 2012. We spend virtually nothing on electricity. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but we have very low energy costs. And we also use it to generate power for an electric hybrid vehicle. And if somebody owned a hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle, it'd be very easy to connect your system to that.
I love it when we have real examples. Thank you, Jim, so much. It looks like Sarah Gardner, who's from the Climate Action Division in the city of Iowa City, has also put into the chat the icgov.org/solar, which has a specific section on solar in historic districts. They anticipated your question, Ellen, and have put it on the internet for us to know. So thank you. I do want to say, Chris, I did go back and calculate briefly about what would that cost savings be over time for if our homeowners in Hills and Iowa City had put those solar panels on at their own cost. It was about what you had, about 6 years. It would have saved them money. Or, excuse me, paid for itself is the phrase I need to use there. So it is about 6 years of what we calculated on single family homes, because we are also giving those tax credits directly to those homeowners. I don't need to be involved in that. I don't need to know all those fancy tax things. They're going to be able to do it and get it directly to them. So that's another great benefit that we had of this of this grant as well. I didn't have to recoup that money.
Well, either we've put everyone to sleep off camera, or we've answered every question that they came
We
here
have
hoping to get
solved
answered.
solar energy in Johnson County. You guys can stop the task force.
Absolutely. No. Let's not be doing that
Well,
now.
I'm going to put Tom Martinez on the spot. Tom Martinez helps coordinate the local nonprofit collective here in Johnson County, which is a group of folks that come together actually at the North Liberty Food Pantry is where most of our meetings are, to discuss issues or potential savings or activities that we can do together. Tom, I'm looking at you through a camera. How much solar can we get onto maybe some local nonprofits just by tapping into the task force?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. So maybe to provide a little bit more context into what Jessica has been saying, there's been a movement among kind of local nonprofits to do a little bit more kind of sector-wide collaboration. And yeah, one of the priorities that they set out to achieve is to identify shared resources or other opportunities for cost sharing. And, I think, Chris, you already mentioned, yeah, North Liberty has solar panels, and I think that's a great opportunity to be a great benefit both for individual nonprofits to see those cost savings, but also just for our community to see more clean energy being developed. So yeah, definitely something that we can look into, and I can, make those connections.
And Tom is at Greater IC as well. So
Yes.
You can find him via the same kind of email that Evan has. And I love how Chris is just like, contact Evan.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep.
That is what we're here for. So yes, please do contact me. And I'll also give another example. The bike library is doing a lot with energy independence right now, and they recently put solar on. So they're a very good case study as well for any nonprofits interested. I'm sure the executive director of the bike library would love to share their story on how it's impacted their organization over there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Evan. Great example.
Jessica,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amplify on one point that Chris made. He rightly indicated that a certain amount of cost savings could easily be projected if you install solar panels. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I think that does not take into account the anticipated increases in the cost of electricity over time that are a direct consequence of the need to build data centers to accommodate greater internet use having to do with AI, basically. So the more those structures are being built, the more power will have to be generated to accommodate them and the services they provide. And so we should anticipate, and I've seen some literature from the Iowa Environmental Council about this, we should anticipate increases in the cost of electricity that we've not had to experience over the past maybe 10 or 15 years.
Yep, that's exactly right. The electric rate increases that we have seen have just been, inflationary. They've been modest increases over the last 10 or 20 years. But what we're going to see over the next 5 and 10 years, because of what Jim just indicated, are going to be unprecedented. There are already projections that whatever rate you're paying for electricity today will be twice that in 10 years from now. So whatever you're paying for electric costs at home or whatever business you're supporting, start budgeting that as twice that amount 10 years from now.
Wow. I did hop in the chat and stated for our solar stability video, it is great. It's about 6.5 minutes long. I will not be testing my internet anymore today. So I'm just putting that link there, and then it's also going to be on our Instagram and our Facebook. I haven't posted it out yet, and only my board of directors has seen it. So you guys are in the know more than you know. Well, I want to definitely say thank you to Chris and to Jim and to Evan and everybody else that's on that task force, and then for presenting today, because every single dollar saved, whether it's directly for rent or mortgage or utility out of pocket, is money that can be used in other ways in our community, as Chris had stated earlier. So thank you so much for bringing this working connective tissue, I like how you say that, together for the benefit of Johnson County residents.
My pleasure. You are our connective tissue, Jessica. So thank you very much.
Oh, I'm part of the system. I love it.
You are.
Great. That's wonderful. Well, these fine folks that are on the screen here too are part of our connective tissue in our system, because without having sponsors that would be able to dedicate towards our mission, we wouldn't be able to amplify the good work that is happening in the community and the stuff that we do here directly at the coalition. So I always have to give a shout out to our sponsors as well. We will not be hosting this next month. So don't show up on the Zoom link, because we won't be here, because we're going to hit the spring social the day before, right? Because that is again on March 26th. That's a Thursday, and that's over at the greenhouse. Okay. So no meeting in March, but we are going to be hosting the fourth Friday of April with a guest speaker to be determined. We have a couple of feelers out on some really cool things. So I'm hoping that you can continue to have this marked on your calendar and stay tuned. Last but not least, we are a members-based organization. So many of you on this call today are already active members. I thank you for your membership. Membership is, I'm going to raise my hand because apparently I'm raising my hand and AI knows it. Membership is only $5 a month, okay? And so it is $60 annually, but we will take anybody, any amount, because we believe that we are definitely stronger together to change affordable housing here in Johnson County and hopefully beyond. So with that, on a 65-degree day, I'm like hesitant to say that because it sounds too good to be true. I am going to bid you all farewell, have a good day, and get outside, please, and take in some of that solar that Chris was just alluding to earlier. Be well.
Great.
Thank you.